On the episode today, we have Chris Abdey. Chris, welcome.
Thank you for having me, Thomas.
It is very much my pleasure. Would you like to take a moment and tell the audience a bit about yourself and what you do?
Sure. I'll put it in a nutshell. I am a procrastination coach. So no, I don't coach people to procrastinate better, although I suppose I could, but that's not what I do. What I mainly do is I help entrepreneurs or other small business owners who maybe feeling a little stuck, or maybe feeling like they're not sure what the next step is to take, or maybe they know what the next step is to take, but they just can't find themselves pulling the trigger. This is especially true when it comes to opening up the purse strings. When you have to up your marketing budget, or if you're thinking about expanding, but you're not quite ready. I typically deal with those kinds of dreamers, and yeah. So I got into procrastination coaching because I am a master procrastinator. You know, that's how I got into it. And for the last 20 years or so, I've always been involved in business, some form of business development, productivity, preventing burnout. And so I hung out my shingle as a procrastination coach, which deals a lot with productivity and burnout.
Great introduction. Thank you for that. For whatever reason, I'm interested in whether or not you can follow your own advice. So it
Hmm.
is sometimes the case that coaches, they're the best coaches, but they can't necessarily implement what they teach, but they're still great coaches. So where do you fall on that scale?
Right. Right. So I'd like to clear up a misconception here. The saying, I like the saying, good coaches give good advice, excellent coaches give excellent advice, expert coaches give expert advice, but really master coaches give no advice. So it's not that we're going to sit there and tell you how to fix your problem, because really you know how to fix your problem. It's just that, there's a block or there's something preventing you from seeing that. So what we do is we sit with you, and we figure out what's kind of best for you, but it's based on you, because I mean you are the expert in your life. So I just wanted to clear that up real quick. Now, as to being a procrastinator, yes, I still do. I recognize it, and I recognize it, and I implement my own sort of teachings and theorems on that. But it is something that we all deal with all the time, so it's not something that you're going to be cured of, and it's not something to fix because you're not broken. It's procrastination and can be seen as more like a defense mechanism, and not a very good one, maybe. But I mean, it does what it's technically sitting there to do, right? And so, yes, I do still procrastinate. Most recently, actually, procrastination robbed me of my last conversation that I could have potentially had with my mother. So just put it off, put it off, put it off, right? Always other things to do, avoiding uncomfortableness, right? So yes, I still do find myself procrastinating in some areas, but it's also something that you can overcome. But you have to understand that it depending on the root cause of the procrastination, because it always goes back to the roots, like way back, because it's how you grew up in your environment, and all that fun stuff. And so, depending if you can actually find the cause and you can get rid of the cause, that's great. If you're not able to, then or you haven't quite managed to yet, then you will inevitably come up against stuff. But one of the core things to understand is that just to recognize when you're doing it, and then once you've recognized you're doing it, then you can sort of get around it. But the human brain can be really sneaky little son of a gun, so sometimes it can find really good excuses, and really good it's really good at justifying, right? So yes, I still do procrastinate sometimes, but that's just part of the way that I was programmed, right?
Okay. Well, you touched on something which was going to be my next question, which was how do we know that we're procrastinating as opposed to, for example, just tired or hungry or one of the many dozen things that it could be as to why you're not doing what you're supposed to do?
Right. So procrastination really comes down to the reasoning behind it. If you are constantly putting something off, because I mean, uh, we can all, and it's a fine line. I agree, it's a fine line. But I mean, I can always come home after work one day and I can say, I'm not going to paint the fence right now, right? And I could do that consistently for my entire work week. But once the weekend rolls around, I'm rested, I've got other things I can do, and I'm still not getting that fence done, and it's going on for a very long time. Then yeah, like if you put it off, and there's no other reason for you to put it off, like no other logical, I like to say logical, logical reason for you to put it off, then you're likely procrastinating.
Okay. And let's say under that definition, and I was smiling. I don't know if you know this, but I was smiling because there is something that I have been procrastinating on using that definition. So, and I'm interested to know why. So, is there a way we can determine why we are procrastinating?
Yeah. And really to understand the why, um, there's actually a way to do it. And when you think about that thing that you procrastinate on, you have to kind of really dig into how are you feeling when you think about that thing, and then you have to ask yourself. You kind of have to ask yourself. It requires a lot of introspection, a lot of really digging into knowing yourself. Because if you don't know yourself, you're never going to figure anything out. I guess my question to you would be, um, do you know what specific aspect of that thing that you're procrastinating on is the most kind of undesirable?
Do you mean like what about the task is undesirable?
Yes, like what about the task is undesirable?
Okay. Yeah, that
So,
probably would require a little bit of reflection. I probably shouldn't do it live on the call,
oh no,
but
no,
it
but
is
see
a.
that's the great thing about coaching, that there's this great. This is why I said the thing, because great coaches and master coaches, we can coach on the thing, right? So oftentimes people will come to me, even even now, they'll come to me with things that are uncomfortable for them, maybe, or maybe it's a financial aspect and it's kind of a touchy subject, right? So we like to do things around the event. There's this event that's bothering me. Maybe they don't know me that well, or there's this thing, right? So we coach them on the event or the thing, and we ask them about certain aspects of this thing. So what I would ask you about that thing is, in that particular portion of it, I would ask you to think about sort of um, what causes you discomfort, or the most discomfort when you think about that. And it often comes down to either making it easier. So I mean, a lot of the times when we don't want to do something, it's because of a level of effort, right? So if we make it easier, then we might not procrastinate. Other times it's just and it gets so granular. I'll give you one that I heard from another person. Was doing the laundry, right? And so I said, oh, and so you had to go. He had to go through it. He had to say, okay, so putting the dirty clothes into the bin. So I'm okay with that. Carrying the bin to the washer. I'm okay with that. Putting the wash in. I'm okay with that. Waiting for the wash. I'm okay with that. Okay. Taking the wash out. I'm okay with that. Now folding it and putting it away. Nope, not okay with that. So, and then from there, that's when you got to say, okay, well, what about folding and putting it away is your issue, right? And then said, well, you got to fold it, and then I have to carry it all the way back upstairs, and then I have to open drawers, and then I have to put it in the different areas. It's just not my style. And so then you have to kind of unravel it a little more, and find different ways that you can either make that more palatable, or if it's something that's really not that important. So in his case, he actually made a deal with his wife. He said, okay, I'll wash it all day long. I'll go and pick up all the ones around the house, the kids, the socks they leave in the weirdest places, right under the bed, on the light, on the lampshade, whatever. I'll go pick those all up. I'll wash it, but please, you just fold it and put it away. you know so there's many different ways to skin the proverbial cat, right?
It is really interesting because, yeah, you do look at it as this umbrella term, but actually it's just this, as you highlighted, there's just this one bit that you don't like. And it is interesting to think about why you don't like it, but as you say, it's probably just a feeling that you get from that thing where you're not really too sure where it comes from, but you know you have the feeling, so you don't want to get that feeling. And you highlighted the fact that he's done a negotiation and sort of worked his way around it. If it is something work related, what do you suggest?
Oh, if it's something work related, it really depends. I mean, is it something work related that only you are responsible for, or is it something work related that maybe you and someone else or a group of other people are responsible for?
Mm. Well, I think that I think if you're sort of entrepreneurial or whatever, you could probably delegate in the sense that you can delegate the things that you're not good at, right? But I think in a lot of cases, if you've got a job and it's part of your job role, then I don't know, I'm jumping forward in the conversation a little bit, but my guess is you're probably not doing something that you should be doing because it doesn't fit you. You think about
Right. So I do get a lot into alignment. I know that not many people like to talk about this. It's still really kind of new. Many of us are goaded into things or guided into things or misconceptions of things, and this is where um, you know, on the extreme end of the spectrum, this can cause full blown mental breaks, wherein you are doing something that just doesn't align with your values, and yet society tells you you should be doing these things in order to succeed or get ahead in life. So that has you working a job maybe where it doesn't align with your values. I have a perfect example of that. A lot of my first jobs out of high school. You go out, you get a job, you can make a lot of money. I started out in the call center. I didn't agree with the policies that we had to enforce. Little old lady. I'm not worried about getting sued. Are you worried about getting sued? It was for Virgin
that?
Mobile, and anyway, their policy at the time was they had these minute packs, and there's this little old lady. She called in, and she said all her minutes were gone. She couldn't call her daughter anymore. I said, okay, I look at the account. All right, I see that you put in $20 and you talked to her for this amount of time. And yeah, she's like, no, 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 no. I bought the minute pack, specifically the, X number of minutes. And I said, well, I understand that, but you didn't apply the minute pack. She's like, well, there's got to be some mistake or whatever, because I always apply the minute pack. And so I look at her account. Sure enough, yeah, every single month, like clockwork, it was applied. And it looks like it was automatically applied. So there was obviously some system change or some hardware change or whatever happened. The point is, it was exactly the same thing all the time. And so my answer was to just give her the $20 and put her minute pack. The company's not losing any money because she would have got the minute pack anyway, right? But my supervisor came over and said, no, nope, can't do it. We're not allowed to give out those credits for that thing because that's user error. And so didn't align with, didn't sit well with me, right? And so I found myself dragging my feet going to work every day saying, I really don't want to go to work, but why? You know? And it's because, and I'm not saying this on a company level, just to try and backtrack a little bit. I'm just saying that certain policies that certain departments of said company just didn't align with me. And so I just found myself in that position where it's a soul sucking job where I just dreaded, having those interactions, right? And that led to procrastination, coming back from lunch, or, taking an extra long break, things like that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I would imagine Branson would be quite happy to give the $20 anyway,
I, I would hope so. I'd
right?
hope so, but, you know, um,
Well, you've touched on I like your example of the washing because it's a simple one which everyone can relate to, like a household task that you have to do. My question is, and again, you did touch on this on your last answer. Is it the case that generally speaking, you always work around these things, or do you get to a place where you actually can solve the problem of folding the washing
oh yeah.
because you've got strategies for it? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, and and again, it really depends on the reasoning why. I'll go into this specific case, but it's not going to be the case every time. But just to give a little bit of light, in his case, again, it was more about having to put it away, right? So if we were to work with him, say he was a single dad, you got to fold and put away the laundry. You don't have anyone else to do it.
Mm.
So if that were the case, then we would start to dig a little more into it and say, okay, how can we make this easier, or how can we reframe your thinking of this? So a lot of times that involves simply reframing the I have to the I choose to, or I get to. It's not a new concept. It should be common sense for everybody. And once you hear it, it's like, oh yeah, well, yeah. And by finding your why, it makes the cost lower. So if your why is high, your cost is low. So I fold and put away the laundry because, well, I like to have my clothes in one spot where I can find them easily. I like to, um, I'm picking up the clothes for my kids because I like my kids to be presentable when they go to school. You know, and whatever your reasoning might be, but you have to find your reason, because it's true. Like, if I sit there and you think about something you have to do, and I can give you an example of the dishes. I have this going through my head sometimes. So I get home, or I get done a day of work or whatever, and I'm sitting on the couch. I literally sit my butt just on the couch. Hasn't even had a time to make an imprint, and inevitably, oh, you need the help with the dishes or something. Like, no, no, I don't want to do that. I literally just sat down. I'm gonna turn on the TV, or I'm gonna do pick up the book, or scroll, or whatever it is I want to do. And then I say, no, no, I am choosing to get up and do that because I love my wife, and I really don't want to fight, and I want to be able to enjoy my program afterwards. So, the cost, it's the cost, it's sort of the cost benefit ratio that you look at, right? So when you look at it, what you're getting out of it, and sort of weighing the consequences, it's like, well, I'd really rather the good than the uncomfortable. So it's kind of falling back on something that, um, it's kind of a quick and dirty, right? Because we're creatures of comfort. So if we can tie the task to something that's comfort related, then we can generally talk ourselves into actually doing it and even enjoy doing it. And that's where you go into like gamification. Everybody likes these little micro games now, or they like the little badges you get, right? So if you have a bunch of tasks you don't like to do around the house, or a chore wheel, or there's tons of influencers on YouTube that do this with their kids. Just stick them into a randomizer, pick one out, and then when you've done five, give yourself whatever it is that you like. Say an extra 5 minutes of reading your favorite book, watching your favorite show, or maybe you like Starbucks, or over in England, would it be Krispy Kreme? Maybe you like that. So go out and get yourself a Krispy Kreme or something, right?
Yeah, I like that. And I do think it would work. For whatever reason this occurs to me, just like to know your thoughts on it, really. Do you think that that is a short-term approach, or do you think that that's something that you can do, you can convince yourself of sort of ongoing?
Oh, you can definitely convince yourself of it ongoing. Ideally, you really want to get to the root of why you're doing it. But again, I know why that might not always be possible. Because there are things that are in our pasts, and things that are intertwined, that we don't even really realize it, because 98% of our thinking, our thought process, and how we act and react is all subconscious. So we don't even see these. So it is a long-term thing. You can definitely do it. Um, it's not. I wouldn't call it only a quick fix, because once you make it a practice and a habit, you'll find that you can apply it pretty much anywhere too. So,
Okay, thank you. Really, really helpful. And I will be thinking about these things the next time I don't want to do a household chore. So I appreciate it. Um, Weird misconceptions about procrastination. Do you ever come across those that you think
I
that's
fall
just
into
got?
that category. The biggest misconception, the biggest one, always comes from the archetype of procrastinator that I like to call, the crisis maker. The crisis maker is the one that's always leaving things to the last minute because, oh, work well under pressure. They do their best creative. thinking when they're under pressure, under the gun, right? Or they think that they always are so good that they can leave it to the last minute, right? So that is the biggest misconception, I think, that the biggest myth, I guess, around it is in that case that it's actually a good thing. I like to refer to it as the procrastinator's fallacy, sort of like the gambler's fallacy. For those of you that don't, gambler's fallacy just says that if you spin red on a roulette wheel like 100 times, then the next one's got to come up black or something like that. Or if you flip a coin 100 times, 50 times should come up heads, 50 times should come up tails. You know, which isn't true. So with the crisis makers, they may feel like they work better under pressure and they work better under the gun, but what it leads to, if you actually look at it, is inconsistent output. So you may do the same task hundreds of times, and if you always leave it to the last second, you're never going to have the same result. Never. And I had a client call me out on this. He's like, "Nah, you're full of it." I'm like, if you can prove it to me, I will refund your entire program and I'll do the rest of it for free. And so he worked really hard at it. He's like, "Dang it, you're right." Because he was trying to do the same thing over and over again. He was always leaving it to the last second, and the outcome was always slightly different. Sometimes it was really good, sometimes it wasn't so good. One time it was really bad. So this output is not consistent when you do that.
Okay. The I should have asked this right at the beginning of our conversation, but you've been on this topic for a while. Your expertise in procrastination. I should have done definitions to start with, but what is the definition or your working definition of procrastination?
Right. So procrastination is really the act of putting something off that we either need to or want to get done, but for whatever reason, we aren't able to get that thing or that event done.
Okay. Simple. Like I say, should have started with that, but I really love your answers, and I think it's going to be very valuable for other people to listen to. And also, if they want to get in touch with you, I think the coaching would also be very beneficial. So, for people who do want to get in touch or follow you, where do they go?
Oh, yep. I'm only on LinkedIn, so you can search me by Chris Abdey. I'm the only Chris Abdey on LinkedIn um, that I know of. As of today, I was the only Chris Abdey on LinkedIn. And also my website, www.procrastinationstation.ca. There is a quick 8-question quiz on there too, free to take if you think you may have an issue with it. And if you want to know sort of what archetype you're falling into, then right after the quiz, you can book a quick calendar invite. We can chat for about 40-45 minutes. I can tell you all about your archetype, can tell you some strategies and things. And even if you don't work with me, at least you've got something you can go and chew on, and maybe it'll help you move forward on that thing that you can't move forward on.
Okay. And do you have any examples that you're really proud of where someone's come to you with a problem and you've really helped them and it's stuck with you?
Oh yeah, actually, it's funny. The best one I can think of was actually a mother daughter team. The mother came to me because she wanted to expand her business, and I wound up working with the daughter because the daughter was procrastinating and getting into the family business because she couldn't get her driver's license. And so I worked with her through the steps to be able to actually get her license and then be in the family business. So I think that was probably one of my best examples. Well, one of the ones that I'm felt most rewarding.
Good. Glad to hear it. Chris, do you have any closing thoughts for our episode today?
Yes. Closing thoughts for the episode for sure. Um, just if you are suffering from some form of procrastination, you know, just be kind to yourself. Understand that you're not broken. You're not lazy. Um, you're not. You don't need to be fixed. Okay. You're just a normal person that's operating under the programming that you operated on. That's all.
A positive message to end on. And I think you provided a lot of value today. So, Chris, thank you for being a great guest.
Well, thank you for having me on the show, Thomas.